Have you ever noticed how the very things society fears, pushes to the margins can suddenly become, well, oddly fashionable, iconic even? Today, we're taking a deep dive into just that, how a society's repressed fears don't just disappear. They come back, often in pretty surprising disguises. We're going to explore some fascinating insights from our sources, looking at a psychological blueprint. You see it in Freud with individuals, Jung with myths, and now, well, it's playing out right there in viral culture. Our mission is to unpack how these marginalized figures, once feared, stigmatized, can end up being imitated by the very people who, shunned them. Okay, so let's unpack this. There's a really powerful example from Argentina, the thug or el turro. What do our sources tell us about how this figure even emerged?
Well, what's fascinating, and what research really backs this up, is how it begins with repression, societal repression. Argentina, historically, stigmatized its urban poor. They were associated with crime, lack of education, this idea of dangerous freedom.
Dangerous freedom. Okay, so it wasn't just about being poor.
No, exactly. It was deeper. A fear of people who seemed to reject the rules, the institutions. They represented this kind of raw, untamed independence that really unsettled the status quo.
But that fear didn't just go away, did it? This is where it gets really interesting. Based on the material, it seems. It resurrected.
Resurrected, yeah. Mutated even. This repressed fear transformed into the thug, this symbol of raw, lawless power. You often hear descriptions like the one who doesn't care.
The one who doesn't care. So if this thug figure embodies all that defiance, how on earth did it cross over? From the margins into the mainstream?
Right, that's the key question the sources tackle. They point towards underground music. Things like trap, cumbia villera, acting as a kind of cultural Trojan horse.
Trojan horse, okay.
Yeah. These genres, born right out of those stigmatized communities, basically smuggle the archetype into mainstream culture.
Yeah.
Made it, well, appealing, even cool, to a much wider audience.
And what about the appeal for the privileged? The sources must get into why, say, wealthy kids might adopt these symbols. Is it just rebellion?
The sources frame it as a fetishized rebellion. It's complex. Wealthy youth, they don't want the actual poverty, the systemic issues that created the thug in the first place.
Yeah.
But they adopt the slang, the swagger, almost like a costume.
Like a costume.
Exactly. They crave what the sources call the illusion of its rebellious power. It's low stakes for them, flirting with defiance, but without any real danger. And this often reveals a deep cultural schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia? How so?
Well, you have the same elites demanding tough-on-crime policies, But then they're dancing to music that glorifies the very chaos they claim to fear. Our sources suggest it's not just hypocrisy, it's maybe a deeper psychological split. These anxieties are repressed, but also kind of embraced, but only in a safe, commodified way.
That's quite an observation. But okay, why does this archetype win? Why does it resonate so strongly across different groups?
Well, in societies grappling with economic crisis, maybe corrupt institutions, the thug figure embodies this, like, twisted kind of hope. The analysis basically points to this message: if the system fails you, become the system's nightmare.
Wow, become the nightmare.
Yeah. And for the wealthy, like we said, it's that low-stakes rebellion, sort of boulevard of broken stereotypes they can walk down because they can afford the costume.
And there's this no future allure too, isn't there? I mean, when social mobility feels blocked.
Absolutely. The thug's nihilism, lines like, I was born in hell, what's your excuse? It becomes this perverse kind of inspiration. Like a defiant shrug at despair.
What's really striking reading through this is that it's not just Argentina. The sources highlight a universal pattern, almost like a formula.
Definitely a pattern. First, deny the problem. Say something like, oh, poverty isn't structural, it's just personal failure.
Right.
Right. Second, let that problem fester. Let it bubble up in underground music, street culture. And third, commodify the monster. Sell its image back to the very people who were afraid of it initially.
You really see it elsewhere. Think about the US with the Gangsta. Systemic racism, hardship, appropriated by suburban teens, the look, the attitude. It becomes this marketable thing, totally removed from its roots.
Right. The material details, that commodification process. Or look at Spain, the Cani. It reflects youth precarity, unemployment. But then you see middle-class kids adopting the slang, the style. It's like symbolically embracing a toughness from a reality they don't actually live.
So the uncomfortable truth the sources are pointing to is these archetypes aren't just cultural decay.
No, not at all. They're distress signals. That's the term used.
Distress signals, yeah. As one author put it, the thug screams, you locked us in slums, now we're in your headphones.
Exactly. Or the Gangsta whispers, you built the ghetto, now profit from its trauma. These figures carry messages society often just doesn't want to hear directly.
So this deep dive really shows us when privileged kids imitate these marginalized symbols, it's not progress. It's described as a failed exorcism.
A failed exorcism.
Oh.
Meaning society tried to banish these fears, push them away, but they just keep coming back, maybe in a slicker, more marketable form.
Dressing its wounds in gold, but never actually healing them.
And you remember what Jung warned. What you resist persists. It just keeps showing up.
Argentina's thug, America's Gangsta, Spain's Cani, they're all just mirrors, aren't they? Reflecting back our own societal anxieties, the stuff we haven't dealt with. So maybe the real question isn't why they exist, Zimmerhaus, or why are we still so afraid to really look in that mirror? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.